when you hang up the phone with a British person, you're going to take about 10 minutes to finally say goodbye. But anything in between that, if you were like, oh, it's going to be 17 Celsius, I still have no idea how to dress. Hey guys, welcome back to the Girl Gone London channel. If you're new here, my name is Kaylin. I'm an American who's lived in the UK for almost 10 years. And in this video, I'm talking about the American habits or customs that I still do. Okay, so before I go on, I want you to comment below and tell me a habit or custom from your home culture, no matter where in the world you are, that you feel like you will always do even if you were to move to a different country. I would love to hear what you think is just ingrained in you and will stick with you. So like I said in this video, I am covering the things that I feel are more American, that I still do, attitudes I still have, maybe words I still use. And you know, most of these, I've been here almost 10 years and I haven't purposefully tried to do these things. I've talked in the past about how it was important to me to keep my accent and to not slip into kind of sounding British for no other reason than my accent feels like a huge part of me and who I am. But these other things are just things that naturally have stuck with me even though I've been here for a long time. Okay, so the number one thing that I did put down, I've just mentioned, and that is my accent. So 10 years on, and people tell me that I sound like I just got off a plane from America to the UK to visit. This is very helpful in situations because I can usually get out of things pretending that I have no clue what's going on, and my accent definitely, you know, leads to people thinking a certain thing, that maybe I'm a visitor, when in fact I've lived here for 10 years. People do say, does my American family feel like I sound British? Maybe in the beginning, maybe there are certain like inflections that I use differently, but at the end of the day, I've never really heard anybody say that I sound British, even from the US. To my own ears, I feel like I still sound really American, and you guys have told me that as well. Some of you not as nicely as the others, but I'm happy with my accent. It's a very kind of middle of the road. I grew up in Orlando and we don't really have that much of a strong accent, so it just kind of sounds, I guess, American to me. And yeah, so my accent is something that I haven't lost after 10 years in the UK. So the next American thing that I thought I would mention is I feel like even 10 years on, I still have American optimism, and it's a totally different culture between the Brits and the Americans in terms of how we view the world, how we express ourselves. A lot of Brits think that Americans are naively optimistic, and that may be true, but in general, I feel like in the US, I learned to always look on the bright side of things. And, you know, if I wanted to, I could be president, I could work my way up and, you know, become a millionaire. I'm just talking about in general how I view things and how I see the world. I feel like the British perspective is much more what they would call realistic, what I might call at times pessimistic. There definitely isn't this like rah-rah, you know, you can do anything or everything's gonna be wonderful, and it's just a bit more toned down here. But I feel like I haven't lost my American attitudes towards positivity and optimism, and yeah, I don't regret being from a culture that does in general tend to see things from a more positive side. Again, a lot of British people that I've met do feel like this is a fake way to live your life, and they kind of view Americans as over the top and as fake. Completely entitled to your own opinion, but I definitely have never experienced any negative side effects of being raised in an optimistic culture. Okay, so the third thing I wrote down was I do still say some American words and some American phrases. Things like couch, which is not really used where I'm living in England, so maybe it's used elsewhere. People tend to say like sofa or settee, but that is like if you're fancy, I feel like, right? Definitely phrases like I will say no worries, or like not a problem, or just things that I feel like are more American. In terms of day-to-day words, there are definitely things that like a pram, what they would call in the UK a pram, I would still call a stroller, but also I don't have kids, so I don't say it that much or hear people saying it that much, but I don't look at, to me, a stroller and think pram. I still think stroller, and there are quite a few words like that where I have not adopted the British version, especially when it comes to yard. So they say garden here, and in the US, we say garden to mean a very specific plot of land that is growing flowers or vegetables. So you would have a garden in your backyard. Here, the entire backyard is the garden, but I still say yard a lot and people make fun of me for that. Backyard, front yard, but I just have not gotten into the habit of saying garden. Okay, another thing on my list, and I can already tell I'm gonna get hate comments for this, I still do not speak Celsius. Yes, I know there are very easy calculations that you can do in your head to get from Fahrenheit to Celsius. And yes, I understand British people are gonna be like, Fahrenheit makes no sense whatsoever. And also you're gonna say that about my next point. And I totally agree with your perspective if we're just talking about this like brand new teaching someone this scale. But when you grow up somewhere using Fahrenheit, it still makes more sense to me than Celsius. So, you know, relearning Celsius, especially when it comes to like cooking times or the temperature outside, I know that 0 is freezing. I know that 32 is a really hot day of like 100 degrees Fahrenheit, but anything in between that, if you were like, oh, it's gonna be 17 Celsius, I still have no idea how to dress. I still have my app on my phone in Fahrenheit, and my husband and I are always going back and forth and asking each other the weather, and you always have to give it in the temperature the other person speaks, because I have not adopted, you know, having Celsius as my automatic temperature reading. I probably never will after 10 years. Again, I know the basics, but anything between 0 and 32, I can take a guess, but I always want to know what it is in Fahrenheit because that's just what I grew up with, and so that's just easier to me. Okay, the next thing, which I said a lot of you British people are going to take issue with, is using cups versus using grams when it comes to cooking and baking. So I do use a food scale here. I can make a recipe in grams, and I do measure in grams quite frequently if I'm trying to come up with the calories for something or baking. However, if you said to me, how many grams does this package or parcel, what they would say here, how many grams does this weigh? I have literally no idea. It could be 10, it could be 6,000. I just have no concept of how much a gram is. So again, I can weigh stuff and report back how many grams and make a recipe like that. But if you said, you know, 200 grams of flour, I feel like my husband could eyeball it and kind of what he would think of as 200 grams. I cannot do that. I still think in terms of cups, which funnily enough, I think cups are actually different in the UK and in the US, but they really don't even use cups that much in the UK. My husband is adamantly against the use of cups and enjoys going around the kitchen going, what is a cup? Is this a cup? Is this a cup? And then he gets all of the glasses and tries to make a point, and I'm like, none of those are actually cups. So yeah, I'm familiar with grams, but my mind still, if you said to me like 4 cups of flour, I could eyeball it pretty accurately. And if you said 400 grams, like I'm probably gonna give you 4,000 because I have no idea. Okay, the next thing on my list I wrote down about being more American or still having American attitudes or habits is I still feel like I live my life in a very like fast-paced, no patience kind of American way. And it's not that British people are slow on accident, it's that they're slow on purpose. And I'm talking in regards to like socializing. So for instance, when you hang up the phone with a British person, you're going to take about 10 minutes to finally say goodbye. And then when you do say goodbye, they say like 86,000 like bye, 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 bye. They say it like forever. In American, I would just be like, okay, bye, and hang up the phone, which I feel like is kind of construed as rude here. And the same goes for like the British goodbye, what I have dubbed it. I'm not sure if it actually exists as a term, but definitely In the States, like if you are ready to leave someone's house, and again, this might differ based on where in the States you are, but what I'm used to is you decide that you're leaving, you gather up your stuff, you gather up everybody who came, you say goodbye, and then you leave. I tried doing this here and it did not go down well. My husband was like, "You are extremely rude. What are you doing?" Because I was like, "Oh, well, we said goodbye, so aren't we leaving?" You know, I'm like, bye, move on to the next thing. Oh no, you say goodbye in the house, then someone comes up with a whole nother point of conversation to like keep talking even though we finished our social gathering. Then you stand outside the door if you're leaving, you stand inside the door if you are the homeowner or whatever. Then you kind of say bye again, bring up some more stuff to say goodbye. Then you go in the driveway. There's another American word for you. What do we call it in the UK? Driveway and a drive. They just call it the drive here, right? Oh, this is a live. I'm not gonna edit this. Driveway, and I think they just say drive in the UK. But anyway, you get to your car. You're still saying goodbye. So this is where I messed up. I was like, oh, I got to the car. I'm gonna open the door and I'm gonna get in the car and close the door and we're gonna drive off. No, that doesn't happen for like 20 more minutes. Then sometimes the homeowner or the person you're saying goodbye to will actually walk out to the car and then you hang out the window while you're still talking. I was like, oh, I did not realize this was a whole thing. And definitely my American self was like, we have got to go. And that's just not how it works here. It's the same with finishing a meal. In the US, we're like, great, we're done. We've paid the bill. We've been here for 30 seconds after we finished. We are out of here. Here they'll stay for like 2 hours and talk. So I feel like I still feel slightly antsy, like at the end of things, kind of just waiting for this process, this kind of social process to play out of saying goodbye or finishing a meal or whatever. I think I'm still pretty American in the sense that I'm like, I've got places to go, things to do, and I just think things end sooner than they do here, if that makes sense. Okay, and the last thing on my list was related to money. So obviously I do know that pounds are used here, not dollars, and I'm not that stupid to think that they use dollars here or anything like that. But my mind still defaults to dollars, and I'll explain. So if we were having someone to come fix the window, I would know that it would cost, call it 200 pounds, and I would expect pounds. I would talk about it in pounds. How many pounds is this going to cost? But if I'm kind of coming up with not a concrete example of something, but you know, you're having a conversation about how much something might cost or like how much, it's just like a more vague term. You're not talking about something that you're actually buying right then and there. I will often say dollars a lot. And my husband will always be like, why are you saying dollars? I think my mind just defaults there. If I don't have something in pounds in front of me or thinking particularly about an object in pounds, I just kind of still think of things in dollars. And there can be multiple reasons for this. I am not saying that I want to or I'm going to live in the UK all year round forever. We are definitely looking at options of spending more time in America. I still have, you know, all of my family and friends are in America, so I think about dollars in relation to them. And, you know, especially when I was at my day job, I also worked with Americans in the UK. And so that was another, like, we would purchase things or like do a dollar to pounds. I still am involved in conversations involving dollars. So again, I know that dollars aren't used here, but I haven't really shaken my default currency in my head being dollars. That doesn't mean that I ever really translate anything in my head. Like if it cost 100 pounds, I usually don't go like, oh, what's that in dollars? That I feel like was gone a couple years in. But if I'm just talking casually about money, I will often still say dollars. Okay, so I hope those were some interesting tidbits for you on how an American is still American 10 years on and what things have not left me. Again, leave a comment below and tell me what you think you would still do from your home culture no matter where in the world you are. I would love to hear your responses. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.